All right. So yeah, guys, it's been a long week. Um, so I'm going to keep this interactive. I actually have way too many slides on here to get through in 20 minutes, and I have a nice countdown timer here. But this is actually based off a presentation or just a talk we gave internally, where I go through. Well, I added some slides to explain what UMA does, the optimistic oracle, and where we've seen traction to date. And then I do a bit of an overview of the Oracle landscape and where I think there is some need for innovation. And then I'm going to touch on where I think we're going, specifically how AI and large language models like ChatGPT, this is the spoiler, can actually help us make better blockchain oracles. So what does an oracle actually do? The thing that I keep trying to educate people on is that a blockchain oracle is not just about relaying price data onto a blockchain. I really look at an oracle as a truth machine that records truths about the world onto blockchains. And so it's a lot more than just what is the price of Bitcoin right now. It is who won the US election. It's did this deposit happen on another chain, like a cross-chain use case. It's did this governance proposal pass. It's many, many things. It's very generalized. It's a big space. And as we build more and more sophisticated smart contracts and more sophisticated applications, decentralized applications, we have more and more needs to do to get truths, to get knowledge onto blockchains. And so just to spell it out, like our vision is to enable any verifiable truth to be recorded on chain trustlessly. And it really, that's the only qualification. If it can be publicly verified, we want to be able to trustlessly get it on chain. Okay, so high level overview, and I'm not going to go, ooh, this didn't format correctly. Oh well. So high level overview, how an optimistic oracle works. Actually simple concept. Propose a statement as true. There is a challenge period. No one disputes it during the challenge period. It gets taken as true. That's it. If we make that path happen 99.99% of the time, it's very easy, very simple. Our only trade-off here is latency. We have to wait this challenge period. The pessimistic path, again, badly formatted here. Pessimistic path is somebody disputes the proposal. And that's supposed to be the edge case. That's supposed to be the rare event. It is the rare event in our system. And then we do a bunch of other stuff there. And at a high level, I often tell people, it's like, okay, well, think about the happy path, because that's where we live 99% of the time. The unhappy path is incredibly important, because that's what makes the whole system secure and resilient, but it is rare. And for us, the unhappy path disputes go to UMA token holders, where they vote in a commit reveal scheme to come up with the truth or the best answer. A lot to talk about there, but not what I'm going to spend today talking about. Okay, so does it work? UMA, as a system, has been in production for over 3 years, which shocks me sometimes to think through. And it's, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of others, it's actually worked pretty well. We've had on the order of 10,000 proposals to the optimistic oracle, and we've had about 50 disputed proposals. I was asked a question just before this talk about like how many of those were like real contentious disputes. I'd say like 15 or so. Some of them were just mistakes, people proposed the wrong data. But generally speaking, what we've seen is that a very small number of the actual oracle requests or the truths that have been proposed, a very small number of those actually get disputed. And right now, the system as a whole is securing over $100 million in assets, and it has been for a couple years now. Okay, so if UMA is this truth machine, what I argue, and just to go into where we have traction, what I argue we do is we help protocols decentralize. And an example use case here, Polymarket is a prediction market. They run on Polygon right now. Polymarket needs decentralized data resolution. Who won a given bet in these prediction markets? And right now, prior to using UMA, they were answering these requests in a centralized way. They literally had their own resolver that would say, A1 or B1, each bet in this prediction market. And so they used UMA to effectively decentralize that process. Across is a cross-chain bridge that our team also built. Sidebar, Across is highly performant. We are really kicking ass right now in terms of our costs are the lowest, our fill times are the fastest, and our overall volume is up and to the right. So we've been very happy with how that product works. But Across works optimistically. And the way Across repays the relayer entities that fulfill user transactions is by optimistically verifying all of these repayment instructions. So again, UMA here sits as this intermediary that takes a protocol and actually helps it decentralize its infrastructure. By the way, this is not dissimilar to what Uniswap is doing with Uniswap X. Their cross-chain design too. Uniswap X is also built optimistically. And again, I look at that as sort of supporting the design decisions that we've made. Snapshot. So there's also a snapshot. There's an UMA integration for Snapshot that follows the innovation of SafeSnap and what Reality did, where you take a snapshot vote and you, in a decentralized way, actually execute it in a Gnosis safe. So generally speaking, I look at what UMA is doing here and where we've seen traction is you take a protocol that has a centralized thing they're doing or that they would want to do in a centralized way, and we insert this optimistic verification module in the middle to decentralize it. And this is how, generally speaking, we're looking at pushing UMA and its use cases going forward. Summarizing this, solve a centralization pain point. OK. So where can we use this optimistic oracle? And I honestly, this is something we did internally a couple months ago, but just to give an overview of the oracle landscape. And I want to do this within this group because I actually think it's useful to highlight how much work we have to do when it comes to building better oracles. So there's many ways in slice and dice the space, but I really look at them as being like 5-ish use cases that we need oracles today or in the nearest future. And it's price feed data, cross-chain verification, what I'll call arbitrary or long-tail data, arbitrary computation, and dispute resolution. And I'm going to relatively quickly flip through these. So oracles for price feed data, I mean, the elephant in the room is Chainlink, but MakerDAO and now Chronicle also have a lot of use. There's many critiques people have with price feed oracles. A lot of people disagree with the design decisions and the fact that they're relatively permissioned or there's ways in which they could break. I actually share some of those concerns too. But this is far and away the biggest use case of oracles in blockchain systems today. My argument is that this won't be the biggest use case in X years, where X is 2, 3, 5, not sure. But I don't think we are just building financial. We're not going to be just building financial applications on blockchain systems. We're going to be building much more. And my reminder here is, I think particularly recently, there are actually a lot of critiques around price feed oracles. Dan Elitzer put out a pretty major narrative around how DeFi protocols should be designed to not even use oracles, what he's calling oracle-free designs. And he did this because the hacks and the manipulations of price feed oracles have been so extreme, he doesn't think you can really build a credible, or call it global scale, financial application with them. I don't actually agree with Dan on this. I think there are solutions. But my broader point here is that the design space is not solved yet. And there's a lot of work to do to actually make this better. Well, back here, I don't actually think optimistic oracles like UMA work that well for this use case. This is not where we're focused. Cross-chain data, another Oracle use case. There are some cool solutions out there. I'd also argue that a lot of solutions default to pretty insecure, like multi-sig-like setups. Layer 0 has an interesting framework where they let you pick your own security parameters, but many of those security parameters, the defaults, really resemble like a 2 of 2 multi-sig. And I just think that is like kind of an unacceptable security setup for the long term, at least. A lot of people think zero-knowledge solutions will be the future of cross-chain communication. I'm unconvinced because zero-knowledge solutions still aren't particularly fast. There's some technical issues as why they might not work for all rollups. I think they can actually be maybe quite complementary to optimistic designs. And here's where also Uniswap X is actually, they researched the space far and broad, and they landed on an optimistic design, which I think is quite telling. So, okay, there's some future here. Oracles for long tail or arbitrary data. This would be use cases like prediction markets or like parametric insurance. Here's where I think UMA is actually doing relatively well. We support Polymarket for now a couple years. And although there have been some controversies around how a market is written, I'd make an argument that I think the system has resolved appropriately many times, or all the time. I think this is an emerging use case of what I'm going to call like arbitrary computation, where you do some complexity off-chain, and you need to bring that data on-chain. Across, the cross-chain bridge we built sort of falls in this use case too, where across, we're validating a bunch of repayment things in a kind of complicated package, but we're validating that optimistically. And I think there's use cases here as more and more projects want to use Web 2 data or do complex things efficiently on blockchains. I think this is going to be a growing area as well. And then lastly, there's like oracles for dispute resolution. And this is a case where I think Kleros is the leader here in anything that's subjective at all. UMA does not have any interest in building subjective court-like systems. However, sometimes even simple things end up seeming controversial. So just the way I always look at this is UMA's trying to verify objective things, but sometimes those objective things have edge cases. Okay. So some of those emojis didn't load, but how well does the optimistic system work in these use cases? Doesn't work well for price feeds. It does actually work okay for cross-chain data. The across bridge proves that, and the fact that Uniswap X is actually adopting the same optimistic design, quite interesting. I think optimistic systems are the only way to get arbitrary or long-tail data onto a blockchain. I think arbitrary computation, there's promise there as well. And dispute resolution, the UMA system works well for unambiguous questions, and then Kleros is what dominates when there's subjectivity or like a court case to decide. So, okay, that's all well and good. The optimistic oracle would obviously be a better product if it were faster and cheaper and more robust. So how could we do that? Sometimes new technologies emerge that change the game. And I joke with my team, 6 months ago, if you said like AI and crypto in the same breath, it kind of was sickening. Felt like hype cycle, just buzzwordy things. But it has changed. We actually legitimately have a new toy in terms of ChatGPT and large language models that is remarkably useful. To my surprise, I did not think 6 months ago we'd be here, and I think many people agree with that. And within an optimistic Oracle scenario, I actually think these LLMs could be quite useful because in essence, they can step in and perform what some of the human functions otherwise are. So specifically, in our optimistic design, we have the person that proposes the truth, and then the person that disputes it if they think it's wrong. And LLMs can't completely replace humans here, but they could certainly assist them. And perhaps that's going to let us build, faster, cheaper, and more robust oracles. So specifically, what would I be talking about here? So right now, the optimistic oracle, and like the UMA design at least, we have to pay rewards to incentivize people to propose statements, propose truths to the blockchain or to the system. If an LLM were the proposer, you pay the API cost of that LLM. Far cheaper. Cool. I'm estimating this at you go from $50 to like half a cent. It's multiple order of magnitude improvement. The other problem is that the optimistic oracle has these challenge periods because we need to give humans time to review what the data is. LLMs run on computers, they're fast. How fast? Don't know. Can we completely trust them? No. But could we use them as a first line of defense to dispute questionable data? Seems possible. So I'd argue there's like a multiple order improvement in speed there, or could be in the vast majority of cases. And then there's lastly, one critique of optimistic designs is around robustness. Hey, how do I know, how can I be sure that someone is actually going to dispute my data? And, it's hard to ensure that humans show up to do things. It's a lot easier to ensure that a computer ran and looked at something. So I think LLMs can help address some robustness concerns where you can be more confident that these systems really are evaluating your data and checking whether they disagree with it. So the best thing about this approach is we can just layer this in to the existing optimistic oracle that UMA has today. There's no re-architecting the system. We literally cannot change a thing and just have a disputer bot running as an LLM that is sanity checking data that's being proposed. And that's kind of cool. Just layer it in and see how well it works. And over time, we can experiment using designs like this to propose data. We can experiment with shortening challenge windows. And maybe we can experiment with other systems where the LLM functions as kind of like the first order of defense before escalating to humans to take a look. Okay, so emojis didn't load, but how does it help us with these different use cases? I don't think the AIs help us with price feed data. The optimistic oracle is still too slow. I'm not convinced the AIs help us with cross-chain data either, because most of the cross-chain data you could programmatically verify without using any kind of intelligence. But I do think LLMs help us on pretty much every dimension when it comes to solving arbitrary or long-tail use cases or verifying arbitrary computations. They just help us do those generalized things better. And then lastly, dispute resolution. I don't think this helps at all because we actually really don't want the LLMs deciding the edge cases. I think that's where you actually really value human judgment here. So the conclusion, and I'm actually timing this okay here, the conclusion is the future of Oracle is optimistic. This has been the path we've been going down for years now, and I'm actually more excited about it than ever. And I'm particularly excited that we have fun new toys like large language models to help improve the product by multiple orders of magnitude. And that is time. And thank you, guys. I'm Hal2001 on Twitter, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hart.